Welcome again to episode 15 of Musical Reflections of a Slightly Conscious Being. I'm Sandra, a music artist that is on a journey towards consciousness. And like I said, today I'm going to share a song called The Moment to Say Goodbye, and I'll be talking about knowing when to let go. Okay, guys? So, in short, last episode, I shared some values that really matter to me and are part of who I am. So I also shared some examples of people that I'm proud to have in my life, and they are part of my life, and they live by their own rules, each one of them in their own unique way. And I do feel like it's important for us to look at these people, not with judgment, right? But with appreciation, because in a way they are expressing their true selves and they are daring to be different. They are daring to live by their own rules and by their own principles in a society that sometimes we are valued by rules that, well, they are supposed to be applied to everyone, but they don't. So I also talked about how we grow in life and sometimes end up outgrowing some values, beliefs, or ideas. And as a consequence, situations that were acceptable and aligned with who we were no longer satisfies us anymore. And this can be true about a job situation, about a house situation, about a relationship. It can be true to your car. Okay, I'll stop talking about cars for now. But like I was mentioning, there are two extremes of behavior in these situations. And it's just like trauma. And I've talked about trauma. Trauma usually perpetuates into extremes, right? The passive and the active. And it's actually the same thing here. So some people never settle and are in constant need of permanent change. And these are the active traumas, right? The active traumas, the ones that cannot stand still. And then we have the passive ones, which are people that settle too easily and have a deep fear of change and letting go. So this can actually, this is also very interesting because some people need change in every area of their lives from time to time. And some people never settle in some areas of their lives and then settle too easily on others. In my own case, I was always a person that sometimes there were times in my life that I had like this need of breaking free and changing my life totally upside down. But this only happened because I settled for too long. And so when things were bottling up and then they just came out and I ended up having to break free from every area of my life, and I quit my job. And this happened back in 2016. I quit my job. I quit my relationship. I moved back into my parents' home. So I changed the city I lived in as well. So many things. I needed to break free from all areas of my life back then. This change that I did now last year was a bit different. There were, of course, my job situation. Even though I'm changing some things, I'm changing some things on my job, but I'm not changing. I'm not changing everything. It's just more of a gradual, just more a tweak of direction, if that makes sense. I love being an artist, being self-employed, so that's not going to change. It's just a matter of really understanding where I want to go in my original music. Since now I see life from a different perspective. But I also felt it was time for a change. But this time it wasn't a change made in the spur of the moment like it was in 2016. In 2016, basically in one weekend, I decided to change my life. In one weekend. Of course, that didn't come from a healthy place, right? This time it was a more planned decision. It was, I thought it over, and so it came from a different place. And that's what I want to talk about with you guys right now, because ever since I started knowing myself more, I realized everything that I'm saying, that I have this pattern of settling sometimes for some things. But then there's a place inside of me that screams and then takes over, and it's not a healthy place at all. So, of course, the balance is in the middle, as always. But for us to be conscious of this, we have to be able to identify and to be aware of these patterns. And how to know? when it's time to let go or stay is one of the most important learnings we can do in our lives. And more importantly, how to know if the decision, because this is the challenge, right? Is this need for change or this need to settle or this afraid of change, is this coming from your heart or is this coming from your unconscious patterns? And that's what I'll be talking today. So I'll start with my song. Seems like this is the moment that we have to say goodbye. I don't want to go, but I also know there are so many things we don't know. I can take it back now. This time I won't find a place to hide. We have to face it. It's not the same thing anymore. I want us to make it, but I'm so tired of feeling alone. So now I'll ask you, do you feel the same way I do? Do you think we'll make it? Or it turn out like we always do? We have to face it. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't want to break it, but I can't do this all on my own. As much as I love you, it's time to love myself even more. I know we'll make it. We just won't make it together, and that's all I know. So let's do this, guys. Welcome again to episode 15 of Musical Reflections of a Slightly Conscious Being. I'm Sandra, a music artist that is on a journey towards consciousness. And I just shared the song, The Moment to Say Goodbye. And I'll be talking about knowing when to say goodbye, when to let go. So let's start with the lyrics. I'll read the lyrics for you. And I'll let you guys know which part I wrote back in 2016 and which part I wrote, a couple hours ago. Seems like this is the moment that we have to say goodbye. I don't want to go, but I also know there are so many things we don't know why. Can't take it back now. This time I won't find a place to hide. We have to face it. It's not the same thing anymore. I want us to make it, but I'm so tired of feeling alone. So now I'll ask you, do you feel the same way I do? Do you think we'll make it or turn out like we always do? It's time to face it. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't want to break it, but I can't do this all on my own. Okay, and from now on, this is the part that I've written just a couple hours ago. As much as I love you, it's time to love myself even more. I know we'll make it. We just won't make it together. That's all I know. And that's okay. I know you'll end up thinking the same. Once your pride gets out of the way, you'll see it as clearly as I do today. So, of course, I written a couple hours ago, but still from the perspective where I was in 2016. Of course, with a lot more clarity now because we see it in a different, I'm a different person. I see it from a different perspective. But if there was one thing that I had to learn, and I feel many people don't learn this. Many people think that when two people break up, it's because the love is gone, or at least from one side. And if there's one thing that I learned last year, is that that is not necessarily always true. Sometimes, no matter how much we love someone, we have to understand that sometimes things just don't work. Love is not enough. And that's true. Love is not enough. People love in different ways. Not all love is the same. And sometimes two people just don't love each other the same way or in a compatible way. And sometimes we just have to know that it's time to let go, that it just doesn't work. And that's the work I did last year. And that's why I have these lines here that, as much as I love you, it's time to love myself even more. And I know we'll make it. We just won't make it together. And that's okay. And that's okay. And that's the learning I did last year. And that's okay. And that's totally okay. So, talking about this song, it's a very straightforward song. I mean, I won't talk about the meaning. It's just many times, back in 2016, like I said, I decided to change my life, and I was in a really, really dark place. I think it was the darkest place in my life. It was back in 2016. I think I started in the last year. It started in 2015. But then I changed, I focused just in action. I chose to ignore my feelings. I was feeling depressed, but I chose to ignore all of that. I chose to just focus because I was finishing my degree, and that was my goal. I wanted to finish my degree. I wanted to start working, and those were my focus. And I focused in actions and chose to ignore my feelings. And then when I start working, I still changed jobs. I still blamed the job. So there was a lot of blaming from my part. I was blaming my life situation for my feelings. That's what many people do, right? They blame their life situations for their feelings. And I was in that place as well. And then it came to a point that I couldn't ignore them anymore. The voices became too loud, the feelings became too intense in a way that they started paralyzing my action. And that's when I realized that I was really, really in a dark place, because I was always a very action-motivated person in my life. And I was always a go-getter. And when I came to a point that I didn't even wanted to get out of bed in the morning. And I started crying because the effort just for me to get out of bed was so strong that I started crying. I didn't want to. And that's when I started realizing, I'm in a really bad place. So many times, and it's what I face in this song, back in 2016, I was in a dark place all over. My relationship was in a dark place. My professional career was in a dark place, but all because I was in a dark place. So basically, these were all projections. I was projecting, and I'm not saying that I was happy with my job situation or with my relationship situation. I wasn't. But the most important thing was I wasn't happy with myself. I wasn't in a good place. So I just had this need to let go of everything, to make a reset so I can start over, because I just couldn't do anything anymore. That's the point I was back in 2016. And many people also call it a burnout. I think for me, it was depression, it was burnout, it was whatever. I was trying too hard on everything. Yes. And I was trying too hard on the wrong things. It's true. But even taking 2016 and that, because 2016 was my extreme, was my lowest point. There were many, many times in my former relationship that I felt that I was done and it was time to let go. I wasn't happy with many things, and I felt like I was trying, but no matter how hard I tried to change it, I always felt like things stayed the same. And I always felt like I was the only one to see it, And every time I tried to talk it over, because, in terms of relationships, but even in jobs, when you have a job situation, it's not only up to you. You have to interact with other people, right? So it's always a situation between you and other parts. You can try to take responsibility and ownership for your part, but then there are other people that you need to interact. So in my former relationship, I felt like I was in a place that I felt like, okay, this is not working. I don't know what else to do. Let's break up. And I always felt that my former partner was just in denial because he was always minimizing, like, no, we're okay. I mean, I don't think it's okay. I don't want to let go. So we were always on this was always this push and pull. I was trying to get away and he was trying to hold on to it. So this is a clear example of how of different ways to look at the same situation, because the situation was the same for both of us, right? But for me, it was time to let go, and for him, it was acceptable, and he wanted to keep at it. So I talked earlier today how some people have a fear of change, and so they tend to settle in situations that are not satisfying. And I do feel this happens to all of us in some point in our lives. Like, it's going to be a job, a relationship, a house situation, whatever. Because the fear of change is actually bigger than the discomfort they feel staying in the same situation. So can also be a fear of the unknown. I do feel all these fears are related. Can be a fear of the unknown, as every change, like when you change something in your life, it's also always a challenge, right? Because it implies dealing with new and unfamiliar circumstances. So many people have that saying, and there's that saying, like, better be safe than sorry, right? Many people take that to the heart. And I do feel like I said, we all do that at some point in our lives. We all have our fears, but here's the trick, and it's not a trick, but it's what works, is once you get familiar with your fears, it gets a lot easier to understand when they are controlling us and our decisions. Because this is what happens with many people. They are just too afraid to change. They are afraid of the unknown. And they don't change because they don't even realize that it's the fear that it's deciding for them, if that makes sense. But like I mentioned before, like every trauma, this form of fear can manifest itself in two extreme opposites. So in one sense, and in one side, you have the fear of change, and then you have the fear of settling down, right? And we all know someone like that. Some people just can't settle. Some people are in constant need of change. And they are quick to find flaws and in reasons why one situation is no longer okay or acceptable for them. And we all know someone, or we can find that example in our lives, that people are constantly jumping relationships, jobs, cars, and I'll stop talking about cars for now. It's just some people are afraid to commit, or they are addicted to the novelty you get from experiencing something new. In my life, I remember back when I was, even as a mechanical engineer, but even before I was a mechanical engineer, the only job I settled in was my first job. I worked on a beauty shop. It has absolutely nothing to do with me, but I found it actually really fascinating. I learned a lot with it, and I dedicated myself a lot on that first job. I was really happy when I got it. And for a while, I even got to store manager at a certain point. And I was the youngest shop manager they ever had. But then they started. They promised me a raise. They never gave me my raise, and that was the point. Actually, when I bought my car. Here I'm talking about cars, but just to mention, I bought a car and I made a loan, and because I was counting with that raise, and they put me as a shop manager, but they never gave me the raise. So I was having all the responsibilities of the new job. They actually changed my job location to a different shop in another shopping mall in the same city, but it was more distant from my house. And I wasn't getting what I was promised to. And that was the point when I was like, okay, this is not as good. I started questioning, okay, I like this job, but I'm not liking the way they are proceeding with me. And so I started talking back, and I started I started talking, and they didn't like that. And in the end, they ended up quitting my contract after 3 years. And I was really, really sad because anyway, I like that job. I felt like I had dedicated a lot of myself to that job. I had committed to that job, but then they didn't commit with me. So after that, I had a really, really hard time committing to any other job that came my way. And I noticed a pattern that I never stayed a lot of time in one job. I think the longest I stayed in one job after that first job was 1.5 years. But on that job that I was for 1.5 years, I had a valid reason. It was when I started going to the university. I started studying, and my boss, at first, he said he was okay, that he was going to respect my studying hours and schedule, and then he didn't. And I tried to talk with him about it. He didn't accept, and I ended up having to quit. But I noticed the pattern. I had a really hard time after being disenchanted or disappointed on my first job. I had a really, really hard time committing to other jobs. It doesn't mean that I didn't work hard. I worked hard on every single job, and I was never fired again. Actually, it was always me firing. I was always the one firing, quitting. But I had a really hard time committing after that, because on the first job, I felt like I tried so hard and I wasn't appreciated. So now I will never try as hard. I mean, I will, of course, if I'm working, I'm working, and I'll be fully dedicating, because that's the way I do things. When I accept to do things, I will do my best, because that's the way I am. But after my hour, I'm going away, and I will never dedicate myself to a job like I did on my first one. And I never did. It's true. So it came from a trauma, right? Because I felt I was disrespected on my first job. And so I was never able to fully dedicate myself to other jobs. And then it came a time in my life that I decided that I was tired for working for other people. And that was true. That happened when I turned 30. And I became self-employed almost 7 years ago. And it was a decision that I know it was the right decision. But for many, many years, for 12 years of my life, I was changing jobs almost every year. I couldn't commit to a job. So I was in that place of trauma. Like, I couldn't settle in a job. So this is interesting, isn't it? I always feel like these things are interesting, because what some people find thrilling, some people actually find terrifying. It's just like roller coasters, right? We are all afraid of roller coasters, but for instance, I absolutely love roller coasters, or all that adrenaline stuff. Absolutely love them. Of course, I get terrified, but that's what makes it fun, right? But some people are so terrified that they can never go on a roller coaster or those weird rides, because they question the security a lot. I don't care. I mean, I'm like, let's go for it. They have legislation. They have inspections. It's fine for me. For me, it's a comfortable, for me, it's an acceptable form of danger. But the basic emotion is the same. It's fear, right? People feel the same basic emotion. It's just the way they deal with the emotion that changes, right? Some people fear the change. Some people fear the continuity. So they both have their challenges. Some people, like I said, change implies adaptation, dealing with the unknown and learning how to do and to deal with in the spur of the moment many times. And settling implies to keep doing something even after the initial thrill is gone. To accept what you have the way it is, for the good and for the bad, because there's no perfect situation, right? You're still learning, you're still getting better, but just not at the same pace as you are when you start something. And I do feel like that's also the reason why many people And we know we just started the year. We are in January. Many people commit in going to the gym, losing weight or making some changes. And they are all committed during the first months or first weeks or whatever. And then they go back to and then they just lose the motivation or whatever reason they come up with, and they stop doing it. Okay. This is because they are just motivated by the thrill of starting something new. So when the fire goes out, it goes out, right? And here's something interesting, and this is my conclusion. This is a reflection that I thought about when I was thinking about this song and what I wanted to talk about today. Is like, isn't this something that is implanted in our brains, like always wanting to go for something new? Because if you think about it, our basic economics is all based on consumption, right? For consumption to happen, people must buy stuff. We have to be constantly, and we are conditioned everywhere to look for the next big thing. You go to YouTube, you have ads. You turn on your TV, you have ads. And most ads are for you to buy something, isn't it? It's all for buying something. So we are conditioned everywhere to look for the next big thing. Sometimes it's something totally new. Sometimes it's an update from something that we already have. So I do feel like it's no surprise to me that more and more people have a hard time settling down, because we are all conditioned to get addicted to the novelty, to what's yet to come, to the next big thing. And I do feel it's more of a consequence of unconscious conditioning. We are presented, and we all have, when we hear people, we all have justifications why we should be always aiming for more and better, right? People, and I see that, I've always, ever since, and this was actually something that I never tried. I didn't do a conscious effort. It was just a normal, natural consequence of my growing process. When I was younger, there was a part of me I felt that satisfaction of getting new things. And for me, and I grew up on a family that we didn't have much, but the truth is my family, and my parents, they had, because now they don't have it anymore. With age, they also changed. But when I was younger, there was a part of all of us that we were addicted to shopping, to getting new things. And I always felt we didn't have much, but when we had a bit more, we would always end up spending. I remember when someone gave me money, I would always like, I want to get a new doll, or I want to get this piece of clothes. And I felt so much pleasure in getting those new piece of clothes or that doll or whatever. So I was like that. And even when I started working and I was living by myself, there was a part of me that I never had a lot of money, but when I could, let me get this, let me get that. And sometimes it were things that were not even that necessary, but I had that. I had that conditioning to be happy to when I got something new. So it's interesting that once I started my personal growth journey, and that personal growth journey started exactly in 2016, I thought that was the beginning of my healing journey. I noticed that my need to buy things started decreasing. It's interesting, isn't it? I do feel like since I was already feeling better with myself, with more at peace with myself, I didn't have so much need of getting things. But it's interesting that I didn't do anything consciously for that to happen. It was just a natural consequence of my evolution as a person. And so now I end up buying a lot less than most people. And it's interesting that I do feel if people want to buy stuff, that's their thing, But I do feel sometimes when people buy stuff, they have a need to justify to me why they are buying. And it's interesting because I'm not asking anything, but I get people sometimes trying to justify to me why they are getting something new. Like, oh, I needed a new phone because my last one didn't have a lot of memory already, and I just turned. Why didn't you make a factory reset? You can do a factory reset, and that works it out. And they're like, but this new phone has better settings. So they are just dying to justify their reasons to buy a new phone or whatever. To me, I don't know why people do that. I don't know if maybe because I don't buy and I don't have that need to buy stuff, they have a need to justify why they do. Like, I don't judge. If you want to buy stuff, that's okay. I'm just saying that usually sometimes these things come from a place of internal need. That was my case. So, as everything in life, the balance, I do feel, is always in the middle, right? When we're talking about saying goodbye and letting go of some things, or just staying on and accepting some situations, the balance is in the middle, right? And true deep peace can only come from the inside. It doesn't matter how many times you change your life around. I do believe that every time I decided to change something in my life, I did change for the better. I did change from the better. I just learned to make those changes from a more balanced way, and not as in a trauma way like I did before. And truth is, and this is something that I really want to alert you guys, because even in the well-being industry, and not talking about coaches, psychologists, and so on, there's also a tendency of aiming for better, for the next method, the next training, and so on. Of course, I mean, they all want, these are industries, right? And with every business, the goal is to make money. But it's interesting because many people that I started following, and coaches and all of that, I started following back when I was 30, when I started my healing journey. I don't follow them. I stopped following them because now I look back, they made sense to me and they helped me back then. But now I look at them and I think they are so future oriented. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong about planning your future and aiming for better, okay? But I do feel that few people talk about how important it is to look at your present status with acceptance, And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying you should ignore your problems or not planning your future. I'm saying before you do that, before you even look at your future, assess where you are now in life and practice acceptance, make peace with it. And I'm not saying, like, no one is happy with everything in their life. That's like impossible. That's a goal we all aim for, but it's impossible, okay? It's impossible to be happy all of the time. Life is made of highs and lows. There are always things to work on. There are always working points. I'm just trying to say, try to look at your present point in life with curiosity, like you were a stranger looking at someone else's life. And I'm sure you'll find areas where you're actually happy, where you're actually in a good place. Others where you're not, that's okay. I do feel that we tend to focus on the negative ones too much. And I'm sorry, but now I will talk about cars. Where's Stig? Where's Stig? I'm just sharing an example that happened to me actually last week. So last week, I was about to get my car to go somewhere. And when I stepped into my car, my clutch was not working. And I noticed immediately that the pedal didn't have pressure. And this is something that happened to me 7 years ago. So I know which part it is. And it's an easy fix. But yeah, the car is not going anywhere. So, of course, I didn't like it. And when that happened, I was like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. But I fixed this 7 years ago. Why is this happening again? And the guys. So immediately the voice in my head started seeing the problem and focusing on the problem. And this is the voice I call the ego, is the part that's focusing on the problem. And of course, I was getting really mad in my head because that's my standard. That's how I was conditioned to deal when something happens, what happens that I had an expectation. I wanted to go out in that car, and the car was broken. So my expectation got ruined, and of course I got angry. But then there was a part of me, and I think at this moment I'm 50-50. Like, I have that voice in my head, but I'm 50% my voice, and 50% of me is not actually, I'm listening to that voice, yes. But then I started thinking the other 50% that was not identifying with that voice, start thinking, but I have another car. Like, I can go in my other car. Like, why is this being a problem right now? This is not a problem. And so I just laughed it off, and I got to the other car, and I thought, this is not a problem for today. Okay, yes, I have to fix this. I actually haven't fixed it yet, but I have to fix this, but not today. Now I have somewhere to be. I have another car. Let's go. And for the rest of the car ride, while I was going on my other car, there was still the voice in my head. I can't believe this happens, and how will I fix this? But then I chose to focus on how good it is, like how grateful I was for having two cars, because now, if one breaks down, I have the other, and I'm so happy that I have another car, and this is fine. This is something. It's something that it happened before. I know which part it is, and then since I started giving more attention to that, focus on the solution, I started having more positive thoughts. And the negative voice started fading away in the background. And then I started having more thoughts. I started, you know what? I miss fixing my car. I haven't fixed my car in a while. It will be fun. It will be fun. And, my car, since it's old, it's 30 years old, it's all mechanics, not a lot of electronics. So it's a lot more easy to fix. And I started, it will be interesting, and let's see if I can fix it myself. And I can go on YouTube, I can watch tutorials, see if it's something I can do. So I started, it wasn't a problem anymore, and this is something that I still have that voice. I still have that programming, because we are conditioned to see these situations as negative situations. But how much are they negative, right? It's how you choose to approach them. Right? So now, answering and getting back to the basic question, when to know when it's time to let go. When you've assessed your fears, so you can tell if your need or not for change is not fear-based. I do feel, talking about this, why is my conditioning to get angry every time a situation like this happens? Because in the past, and as when I was growing up, I remember, and this is here's another example, and this one is really, I get really, really nervous. I still get really nervous, but now I see it in a funny way, because I'm conscious, and I know why that happens. For many years, here in Portugal, we have something that is called mandatory inspection, and it's something that you have to do annually. You have to take your cars to a mandatory inspection in a place that is legalized to do so. So they can check some things in your car. It's just a safety feature. They check some things in your car, and if you pass the inspection, you just have to go next year, and that's fine. If you don't pass the inspection, you have 30 days to fix some things in your car, and then go again to get approved. So it's just to actually, that's a good thing, because it's a security measure, right? Because if you don't have the inspection, you cannot take your car in the street, in the road. That's just how it happens. Well, you shouldn't. Well, if you get caught by the cops, of course. Well, anything. That's a different subject. But for many years, and I still am, every time I have to go to mandatory inspection, I get so nervous. So nervous. My heart races. And I have this smartwatch that controls your heartbeat. And kid you not, guys, and I went to the inspection just this week, 2 days ago. I took the van to the inspection, and my clock, my smartwatch starts saying congratulations, because it thought I was doing some exercise, and I was doing a lot because my heart was racing so much. Why do I get nervous? Because when I was a kid, my dad always took me when he was going to the mandatory inspection with the car. I was always with him, and every time the car needed to fix something, my dad would get extremely angry and extremely frustrated, because we never had a lot of money. So of course, every time we needed to fix something in the car, it was a precarious situation for us, because sometimes we didn't have money to fix the car. Sometimes if we fixed the car, we didn't have money for groceries and things like that. So that's why I still get nervous every time I go to the inspection. Even when I was older, and in the beginning, when I was working, but I still had I didn't have a lot of money. So it still was frustrating to me every time I had to go to the inspection and I had to fix something, because then you have 30 days to fix it. I would get nervous, but I still had a valid reason, because sometimes I was struggling for money. But now it's not the case anymore, and it hasn't been the case for many years. It's fine. If something is not okay, I'll fix it, and that's fine. But I still get nervous. I still have the conditioning to get nervous. And now I see it, of course, and I used to get really mad, and now I just focus on what I'm feeling. I don't ignore it, and I actually laugh at myself for being nervous like I am. When my smartwatch the other day congratulated me because my heart was racing like crazy, and he thought I was doing exercise while I was actually in the inspection, getting my car inspected. I laughed like crazy by myself because I thought this is so funny. It's just because I still get nervous. I still have the physical symptoms of the trauma. It's impressive, isn't it? But since I have the awareness, I know where it comes from. I know why that happens. It's okay. And it gets better every time. And now I have 2 cars, so I have to go to the inspection twice per year. And once I saw that as dread, and I like, oh my gosh, now I have to go to the inspection twice per year. The other day I was thinking, it's good that I have to go twice per year right now, because now I have twice the opportunity to practice being with myself and dealing with this trauma. So there's this saying, it's not my saying, I don't know who said it, but I think it's amazing. That is, courage is not the absence of fear, it's the willingness to keep going even though you're afraid. And fear can paralyze action or create extreme reactions like fight or flight mode, right? But this only happens if you let your fears control you. And once you get to know your fears, you slowly begin to take back control. And once you take back control, you get to create your life from your real self. And then it gets easier and easier to figure out when it's time to settle and when it's time to let go. And that's what I have for you guys today.